I have to admit, I don't believe a single word in what Marc Miller and Justin Trudeau said. Do I trust them? Do I trust any word of what they say on that topic? The answer is no.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be kind of jumping around a little bit as we're going to start off with the announcement that Marc Miller and Justin Trudeau made late last week on immigration. Now, this is going to tie into a lot of the subsequent videos that we're going to be taking a look at, but the main topic and target of the video today is about the Century Initiative. Now, if you're unfamiliar with it, I'll give you a quick little Sparks notes on it, but I would highly suggest you go check out Northern Perspectives video from about 3 months ago that they did on it. I'll leave it linked in the description below. But essentially the Sparks notes is that this initiative is run by a whole bunch of elites. If you want to think of BlackRock, bingo. We have McKinsey, who has Dominic Barton. He used to be on the CEO of McKinsey. And McKinsey, I'm sure you remember, it was audited by the Auditor General. She found that there was a lot of contracts given. I believe between 2021 and 2022, they got about $55 million in government contracts. And then later on, from 2022 to 2023, it was about like 46 or 47 million dollars worth of contracts. So, you know, another red flag there. You have Cisco. There's just a whole bunch of players. And actually, while I was doing some research on the Century Initiative, our Governor General, the guy of the Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklin, is actually in their video from 7 years ago for a little brief snippet, which I'll play.
Many people dream of coming to Canada.
We have a really great Canada and we're really, really lucky to be here.
I love our diversity. I love the tolerance we have for one another.
Canada's an accepting society.
Canada is a good place to raise your family.
At its root, it's a country where anybody can prosper.
And I thought this was very interesting. I was like, why is Tiff Macklin in this video? So I did a little bit more digging, and I actually came across on their website, the Century Initiative website, from 7 years ago as well, 2017, the Growth Summit 2, Immigrants Aren't Job Killers, They're Job Creators. And here, Tiff Macklin, as you can see here, he was the dean at Rotman School of Management at the time, University of Toronto and Public Policy Forum's Economic Summit. And he's on this panel here, and just listen to some of the things that he says here.
So, you know, immigration is going to be an important part of our labor force growth, but it's not the only part. You know, we have lots of people already here in Canada, and there are opportunities to improve the labor force participation. You know, take women. We actually have a pretty high rate of labor force participation in Canada, but if you compare us to some Nordic countries, Denmark, Sweden, with more informed childcare policies, there is potential to increase female participation. We've got all these baby boomers moving into retirement. When the retirement age was set at 65, life expectancy was less than 70. It's now over 80. People are living longer, they're healthier. You know, we need to adjust we need to facilitate working longer in life. We need to make it more flexible. Most of these people don't want full-time jobs, but a lot of them are very interested in further labor force engagement. You know, that grows labor force participation. The other piece is we have to improve productivity. I mean, ultimately, we have to become a more dynamic, more innovative economy that attracts more of the world's talent and grows the economy. But just bringing more people in isn't going to, by itself, grow the economy.
Now, one thing that really stood out for me was that he's been talking about, I guess, productivity for over 7 years now, because that's what he's been talking about recently in 2024. He was that's something he brings up a lot about, is that our country is not productive, and that's going to be the decline for us economically. But the other thing is they keep talking about getting women into the workforce, and this ties into another video that the Century Initiative put out about 5 years ago, where a member from BlackRock, I think he's a CEO or he's pretty high up there, he was also giving this whole example of getting women into the workforce and basically letting the government raise your children because they just want to have all the human resource working as
a nation. So the goal of 100 million people by 2100 is driven by that underlying demographic and economic need. How we get there is in part through immigration. And the reason it has to be through immigration is because our birth rate also continues to fall. So today our birth rate at about just over 1.5, that's 1.5 children per woman in this country, if you do the math, is obviously insufficient to even keep population at current levels. So we'll actually depopulate if we don't bring more people in. You look at the taxes and the support that immigrants provide to our social programs, not taking from them what they provide to it, they are a net contributor.
Although none of that's ever been tested at scale, right? That's always been...
But Amanda, we are testing this at scale at close to 1% of our population today. So we're doing well. Now, it doesn't mean we don't have to do more. We have to think ahead in terms of housing, and that's one of the things that we propose. We have to think ahead in terms of education. We have to think ahead, very, very importantly, about early childhood support. We need to ensure that we have a fully deployed workforce, including making sure that women are fully deployed into the Canadian workforce. And in order to do that, we need a national child care strategy in our view. So all of those things have to come together along with immigration. But we are going to let less people into this country this year than we did on the eve of the First World War.
Now, another thing I find strange is they're talking about how there's not enough babies being made, how there's about 1 to 1.5 children being produced, and obviously that's not enough for the replacement of the individuals who are creating the babies, because you have 2 parents, maybe 1 kid. It's not really replacing. So then they're talking about immigration. But in that same vein, they're talking about getting women out of the household where they're raising the children and getting them into the workforce, and then allowing other entities to raise your children. Back in the day, the man was able to just go out and work and get enough money to sustain for the family, and the woman or the wife could stay at home, raise the children, take care of the household, yada, yada, yada. If the woman wanted to go work, by all means, she wants to go out and work. But that's not even an option anymore. Both parents have to work unless you're like some big CEO or maybe you work for an oil company. Like, it's not that possible now to have an individual income cover everything. So you are now forced to have to use either a daycare or even this $10 a day childcare program in order to go out there and make some more money. But then you're just funneling that money back into, you know, which then brings us back to the announcement that they just made last week.
Canadians are justifiably proud of our immigration system. It has made our economy the envy of the world. It's how we've built strong, diverse communities. It's how we've demonstrated that differences can and must be a source of strength, not a source of weakness for communities and society. Immigration is vital to our future. And as a federal government, we have to make sure that that pride, that faith in immigration is not undermined. We've been through a hard time these past few years. COVID stopped everything. When we started to emerge from it, workers were in short supply, things we needed weren't going to market, and prices started going up, so we acted. Now, it is time to make the adjustments to stabilize the immigration system that we need and get it working right for Canadians for right now. Today, we're announcing that we will reduce the number of immigrants we bring in over the next 3 years, which will result in a pause in the population growth over the next 2 years.
When it comes to Canada's permanent immigration targets and aligning them to our economic needs, I'm here to announce and confirm that the current plan reduces next year's projections from 500,000 permanent residents to 395,000, a net reduction of 105,000 permanent residents immediately in 2025. After that, in 2026, a progression down to 380 to stabilize the numbers at 365 in 2027. The lower permanent resident targets, as well as the temporary resident targets that I will speak to in some length in the next few minutes, will have and are expected to impact the housing supply gap by about 670,000 units by the end of 2027. That means that we will not have to build an additional 670,000 housing units by that time. This is significant.
And I don't know if you heard what Trudeau said there, but he said they were going to make immigration work for Canadians for right now. And then Miller saying that this is significant, that they can't seem to build these houses that they keep promising. So instead, they're going to reduce the amount of people that are coming in, and that'll somehow open up 670,000 houses by 2027. Like, you put all this money in for this housing accelerator, the infrastructure and housing programs that Pierre just announced he's going to be scrapping because you haven't done anything with that. But this is your solution. And to be honest, I don't believe them either with these numbers, because if this is the chart that Northern Perspective actually was working off of that I found here, you can see here, down here, the years, 2021 to 2022. This is a spike of 700,000. And then between 2022 and 2023, this is 1.1 million individuals that came in that spiked the population as well. So as they're reducing, quote unquote, reducing the amount of people that are coming in and out of the country now, it's actually just going to level out. And this is what the member from the Quebec party that I showed you at the beginning expressed. He laid this out saying they can't be this stupid to not realize this. This actually was intentional, the thing that they did here.
I know you like to talk a lot about the Century Initiative, and which was, the argument was that we needed a lot more population to make up for labor shortages in Canada. That was essentially they wanted to add to the population, and you've challenged this in the past. Last week we saw the Trudeau government reducing the number of immigrants that they will allow in Canada. So do you think the trend is the way you're going towards fewer temporary and full-time immigrants? Do you think you're on the right side of the equation at this time, given that this just happened last week in Ottawa, and now you're proposing it if the PQ becomes a government?
It's the trend worldwide. I have to admit, I don't believe a single word in what Marc Miller and Justin Trudeau said. Remember that they said that lowering the immigration targets was casser du sucre sur les immigrants. In the Roxham file, in the airport file, they were totally in bad faith. They associated, they went with so many declarations such as newcomers in Canada will build their own house. Doesn't make sense. So I don't trust their honesty for a second on that topic. It's not their intention. It's not what they've done over the past years. Now, of course, for us, it's a different environment. 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, when we asked that Roxham be closed, the context was, especially from the federal government, the context was very detrimental to the Parti québécois. People said that we were this and that. We're no more in that environment. Yet, if you look at the figures, the impact on temporary workers from the federal program is so little. It's really not changing the situation of Quebec. And even on the permanent immigration, we are more or less in the targets of the Century Initiative, because they went overboard. They went way further than the Century Initiative, then they went further than their target. And so when they reduce it, if you take the average, we are within the Century Initiative, and that Century Initiative is wrong. It's based on the very stupid assumption that growing the GDP makes you richer. But like even a CGIP student understands that growing the size of your economy has nothing to do with wealth. So they can't be that stupid. they were intentioned. They had an intention. In the same way that saying that more immigration, higher immigration will solve the worker shortage, the evidence is worldwide, is constant, and it's the same case for Ontario and Quebec. It's not true, and they knew. It's impossible that they're that stupid. They knew, and I think they have a responsibility. They will have to be accountable. They will have to be accountable, just as certain media said those lies so many times. I think it's misinforming the population, and it had such a tremendous impact on our society. I can't believe that we went through those lies for so many years. Good thing that we're not in that environment anymore, but do I trust them? Do I trust any word of what they say on that topic? The answer is no.
That's the answer for majority of Canadians currently as well. Nobody trusts Trudeau. Nobody trusts Marc Miller. But he's not lying. This is what they did. They painted you as some sort of a racist, Islamophobe, xenophobe. Trudeau and Miller both did. If you had any kind of pushback on the immigration thing, they just labeled you as something like that. And we saw the problems with Roxham Road. It was supposed to be shut down. They left it open. We had a flooding of individuals coming into Quebec. That's why Quebec has been complaining so much about the immigration. I understand that. You know, they're concerned about their language and all that good stuff. But he actually gets pushback from another reporter in regards to this, saying, like, what do you think this is going to look like on your stance on immigration? And he just shuts her down, saying, like, we don't do this based off how it looks.
Perceptions are hard. They are really tenacious. How will you counter those perceptions that the PQ government would be anti-immigration?
We're not doing politics based on perception. We're doing politics based on the best public policy. So,
but how will you make sure that you're not like an anti-immigration government with those numbers?
Those numbers are those from the beginning of the 2000s, when the French language was stable and housing was stable and services were stable. So if you take the stance of a Quebecer that is from first or second generation of immigration, they have the exact same incentive or interest in having systems that work and having a social climate that work. We go through in that document what's happening right now in Europe, where the situation is very tensed, because they were not wise enough to adjust their policy model in time. We think that if we get back to a durable, to a sustainable model right away, everybody wins, because you get back to something that works. If it works, people are happy, and it is in the interest of Quebecers who are from first or second generation of immigration to have services, to have housing. So that's why it's very important for me to just say over and over that we're all Quebecers and we basically have the same interests. What's at stake here is the federal imposing policies that are just pure nonsense based on an ideological fugazi, something just in orbit. And unfortunately, the cost for our society of those years of just telling lies to the population are very high. I don't tolerate that we have so many people that are homeless in Quebec. It's not right. We shouldn't accept that health services, that education, take education. We have the equivalent of 52 schools right now just for hosting kids that have just immigrated. And of course we'll do it. But in terms of capacity, in terms of people in the system, of course it has an impact. So it's just the wrong policies. And you'll hear from our discourse on a constant basis, we will target the policies and the people who are responsible for those policies. We will never target the people who, rightly so, think it's fun to live in Quebec. Once they're Quebecers, they're Quebecers. And they have the exact same interest. They want services. They want something that works. They want a climate, social climate that has always had the reputation of being very easygoing in Quebec.
And his approach seems very pragmatic. He's looking at when it was sustainable before, how prosperous it was before. Let's get back to those numbers. And that's pretty much what Pierre has been saying lately, with going back to the 150 years, he says, of how the immigration system used to work before Trudeau and his liberals decided to open the floodgates. This is why our numbers of homelessness and people can't afford anything. There's no work. There's no health care. Like, this is why there's such a strain on all of our social services. And as he mentioned, this isn't just here. It's happening in Europe. You can see it in France, France and other places of Europe. You can see it just south of the border from us, like New York, Chicago, all the migrants that are going to these sanctuary cities. Their system is crumbling. They can't do it anymore. They can't afford it. But until the border gets dealt with, and until they put a pause on immigration, or say, listen, nobody else allowed in this country. We have way too much. We need to deal with what we have right now. I don't see it getting any better. But as always, this is just my opinion. Love to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Again, I will leave the link to Northern Perspectives video. It gets a lot more deep dive into this, so check it out. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.